The 73 woman said, "My body's too big, I'm not breeding material." Yet he got her pregnant. Alina was born in a small town where everyone seemed to notice everything about everyone else. From the moment she could walk, people couldn't stop staring at her. She wasn't like the other children. She was taller, much taller. By the time she was 8, she was already taller than most of her teachers. By her teenage years, she had reached a height that made her stand out in every room she entered. At 7 feet 3 inches, she was unlike anyone else in her town, or anywhere she had ever been. From a young age, Alina realized that being tall came with its own set of challenges. Children in school could be cruel without meaning to, making jokes or asking questions that made her feel self-conscious. Some would whisper behind her back, calling her giant or freak, words that stung more than they sounded. Adults weren't always much better. People would stop her on the street, asking to take pictures, commenting on her height, or making remarks about how she must play basketball or model because she was so tall. At first, Alina tried to laugh along with them. She tried to smile and act as if she didn't care. But deep down, she felt very alone. She wished that people could see her as a normal girl with hopes, dreams, and feelings instead of as someone who was different because of her height. She didn't want to be famous, and she certainly didn't want to be treated like a curiosity. Her family was loving and supportive, but even they could not shield her from the world outside. They encouraged her to embrace her uniqueness and assured her that being tall was something to be proud of. Her mother often said, "Alina, you are special. The world may not understand it now, but one day you will see that your height is a gift." Alina wanted to believe her mother, but it was hard when people stared at her in public or whispered cruel jokes at school. As she grew older, Alina began to notice something else: people's assumptions about her. Many assumed that just because she was tall, she must be strong, athletic, or able to play basketball or volleyball. Others assumed that she wanted attention or was confident in ways she often did not feel. These assumptions frustrated her because they didn't reflect who she really was. Alina loved reading, painting, and quiet walks in nature, simple things that weren't related to her height at all. Yet, people often ignored those interests and focused only on how she looked. Because of this constant attention, Alina started to feel uncomfortable in her own body. She felt it was too big, too noticeable, too much for most people to accept. She worried about dating and relationships because she feared people would only see her height and not the person she truly was. She often thought, who would want to be with me? Who would love me for me and not for my height? Despite her insecurities, Alina had a kind heart and a gentle personality. She loved helping others and had a way of making people feel comfortable around her. Friends she made in school often said she had a calming presence. She was smart, creative, and funny, but her confidence wavered whenever she met someone new. She felt that no matter how good her personality was, her appearance would always be the first thing people noticed, and that thought often scared her away from trying to make connections. Alina's social life in her early years was limited. She often spent time at home reading books or drawing in her sketchpad. She dreamed of meeting someone who could see past her height, someone who could treat her like a regular person, someone who could make her feel beautiful without focusing on the one thing that made her different. But that dream seemed far away, almost impossible, because she had grown accustomed to people judging her first and talking to her second. Then, one evening, everything began to change. Alina was invited to a small gathering by a mutual friend she had known from school. She wasn't sure she wanted to go. Parties were always tricky for her: too many stares, too much attention, and too many people talking about her height rather than getting to know her. Yet, something about this gathering felt different. She felt a spark of curiosity and decided to go, telling herself that maybe this time it could be different. When she arrived, the room was filled with laughter and casual chatter. People were talking about their lives, their work, and their hobbies. Alina felt a bit nervous, standing quietly near the corner, observing. She wasn't sure if anyone would try to talk to her or if they would just notice her height first. But then she saw him, Mark. Mark was unlike anyone she had met before. He wasn't staring at her like she was some kind of spectacle. He wasn't making jokes about her height or asking her if she played basketball. Instead, he smiled at her warmly and walked over. "Hi, I'm Mark. I think we haven't met before," he said simply, with a tone that made Alina feel at ease. They started talking, first about neutral things, The music playing in the background, the small art decorations around the room, and the funny little details about the party. Elena found herself laughing at his jokes, and she realized that he didn't treat her differently because of her height. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she could just be herself without worrying about what someone thought of her body. As the evening continued, they found a quiet spot in the garden outside. Elena shared small parts of her life story, talking about her childhood, her love for art, and her quiet dreams. Mark listened attentively, nodding and asking thoughtful questions. He never once mentioned her height unless she brought it up herself. She noticed that she didn't feel judged. She felt understood. It was the beginning of something new, something Elena had never experienced before. She felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it was possible to find someone who could see her for who she truly was. Maybe someone could love her not for the way she looked, but for the person she was inside. After that night, they began to meet more often. They went for walks, visited museums, and even tried painting together. Each meeting helped Elena feel more comfortable in her own skin. Mark's kindness, patience, and humor slowly chipped away at the insecurities she had carried for years. She still had doubts and fears, but for the first time she felt like she might have found someone who could see her entirely, body, mind, and heart. Despite all this, Elena often reminded herself to be careful. She had been hurt by people before, and she knew that trust wasn't given easily. But there was something about Mark that felt genuine. He didn't push her into anything she wasn't ready for. He respected her boundaries and allowed her to take things at her own pace. Through their friendship, Elena began to see a side of life she had always dreamed of but never thought she could experience, a life where she could be loved for herself. Mark showed her that height was not a barrier to love. It was not something that made her unworthy. He helped her see that her body was not too big or too much, but simply a part of who she was, a part that made her unique and special. By the end of the first year of their friendship, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a quiet confidence. She still had moments of doubt, but she also had moments of joy, laughter, and hope. She realized that sometimes life surprises us in ways we never expect. Sometimes the person we least expect can help us see ourselves in a new, better light. Elena's journey was far from over, and she knew there would be challenges ahead. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was facing the world alone. She had someone who truly cared, someone who could see her worth beyond her height. And for Elena, that realization was worth more than anything else. After months of friendship, Elena felt something changing inside her. Mark had become a constant presence in her life, not just a friend who made her laugh, but someone she trusted deeply. Still, despite her growing attachment, Elena couldn't ignore the insecurities that had followed her for most of her life. She often thought of her height as a barrier to love, and she had built walls around herself to protect against the judgment of others. Elena's insecurities were complicated. They weren't just about appearance. They were about acceptance, belonging, and the fear of being misunderstood. She sometimes imagined a world where she was just like everyone else. Average height, blending in without stares, without whispers, without endless assumptions about her capabilities. It was a strange dream because she loved aspects of her height. The way she could reach high shelves with ease, the way she stood out in a crowd. But the negative attention she received often outweighed the positives. Mark, on the other hand, seemed to have no trouble accepting her as she was. He didn't make her feel like a curiosity or like she had to explain herself. He treated her as a person first, and slowly, Elena began to realize that maybe, just maybe, someone could love her for who she truly was. But old fears don't fade quickly, and she often found herself pulling back emotionally, afraid that the next hurt was just around the corner. One quiet evening, they went for a walk along a path lined with autumn leaves. The golden light of the sun reflected off the trees, creating a calm, magical atmosphere. Elena hesitated before speaking. "Mark," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." Mark stopped walking and looked at her with gentle curiosity. "What is it, Elena?" I feel like my body is too big," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't think I could ever be someone's partner. People look at me differently, they always have. I feel like I'm not really breeding material, I guess." Mark's expression softened. He reached for her hand, holding it reassuringly. "Elena, I don't see you that way. I see you for who you are inside. Height doesn't define you, and it doesn't make you any less capable of having a family, loving someone, or being loved in return. You are more than your body. You're smart, kind, funny, amazing in ways people often don't see at first glance. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had heard words like that before, but never with such sincerity. Mark's tone was different. It wasn't empty flattery or a polite way to make her feel better. It was a belief he truly held. And in that moment, she felt a small crack form in the wall she had built around herself. Over the next weeks, Elena found herself thinking about Mark constantly. She remembered the way he laughed at her jokes, how he listened when she spoke, and how he made her feel like her thoughts and feelings mattered. Yet, even with these thoughts, a voice of doubt remained. What if he only likes me because he's curious? What if he leaves once he sees how difficult it can be to be with me? Mark seemed to sense her hesitations without her saying anything. He didn't push her, didn't demand explanations or assurances. He simply continued being present, patient, and supportive. He invited her to his favorite spots in the city, shared his own stories, and talked about his dreams. With him, she felt normal. She felt safe. One rainy afternoon, they visited a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street. They sat by the window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. Elena sipped her tea and hesitated before speaking. "Mark, do you think people can really see past appearances?" she asked quietly. Mark smiled gently. "I think some people can. I think the right person, the one who truly cares about you, will notice everything that matters. The little things, the way you laugh, the way you think, the way you treat others. That person will love you for all of it. Appearances are only a small part of who we are." Elena nodded, feeling both comforted and anxious. She wanted to believe him, but years of judgment and doubt made it difficult. Still, she felt hope stirring in her heart, a fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. They shared countless quiet moments together, walking in the park, cooking meals side by side, visiting local art galleries. Mark would often compliment her in ways that didn't focus on her height. He would notice her sense of humor, her thoughtfulness, and her intelligence. Slowly, Elena began to see herself through his eyes, not as someone too big or different, but as someone capable of love, worthy of attention, and deserving of happiness. But the journey wasn't without challenges. There were still days when Elena's insecurities took over. She would catch herself comparing her body to others, worrying about what society thought, or wondering if she could ever be truly loved for who she was. On those days, she would retreat into solitude, sometimes avoiding Mark even though she wanted to see him. Mark never reacted with frustration or impatience. He understood that Elena's fears were real and that trust and self-acceptance take time. He would send her small messages of encouragement, remind her of the moments when she had been strong, and gently invite her back to share her thoughts. Over time, his patience helped Elena understand that love didn't have to be rushed, and acceptance didn't have to be forced. One day, while painting together in Mark's apartment, Elena found herself opening up more than she had ever done before. "I've spent my whole life thinking people only see my body. I've built walls around myself because I thought no one could love me for me. I'm scared, Mark. I don't know if I can trust someone to really see me," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark put down his paintbrush and took her hand. "Elena, you don't have to be afraid with me. I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to prove anything to me. You don't have to change anything. I like you for who you are, not what you look like." Those words struck a chord deep within Elena. She realized how rare it was to find someone who genuinely wanted to know her, who wanted to love her without conditions or expectations. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel the possibility of true connection, something beyond fear, beyond judgment, beyond insecurities. As the months passed, their relationship grew into a deep emotional bond. Elena began to notice subtle changes within herself. She smiled more freely, laughed more openly, and even started to see her own height as a part of her identity that could be celebrated rather than feared. Mark's unwavering belief in her had become a mirror, reflecting a version of herself she had long forgotten existed, a version that was worthy, confident, and lovable. Yet, Elena still faced moments of doubt. Society's judgments, past experiences, and her own insecurities sometimes crept in, making her question whether she was ready for love, for a family, for a future that included someone as devoted as Mark. During these times, Mark's presence was her anchor. He never dismissed her feelings or told her to get over it. He simply reminded her of her strength, her worth, and the unique qualities that made her who she was. One evening, as they walked along the riverbank watching the sun set, Elena felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. "Mark, what if I can't? What if I'm not what you want in the long run?" "My height, my body, I feel like it's too much," she admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. Mark stopped and turned to face her, his gaze steady and filled with warmth. "Elena, you are everything I could ever want. Your height, your body, your heart, it all makes you who you are. I fell in love with the person inside, and that hasn't changed. We're in this together every step of the way." Hearing those words, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she realized that maybe she didn't have to hide, didn't have to fear, didn't have to retreat. She could let someone in, fully and completely, without worrying that her differences would push them away. By the end of part 2, Elena was not entirely free from her insecurities, but she had learned something invaluable. Trust and love are built through patience, understanding, and unwavering support. Mark had shown her that being different didn't make her unworthy of love. It didn't make her less capable of building a meaningful relationship or family. And slowly, she began to believe that her life could hold more happiness than she had ever imagined. Elena's journey toward self-acceptance and trust was ongoing, but with Mark by her side, the path no longer felt impossible. The seeds of hope had been planted, and they were growing, promising a future where love could flourish, barriers could be broken, and insecurities could be replaced with confidence and joy. As the seasons changed, Elena and Mark's bond deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their friendship had grown into a quiet, comforting love, the kind that didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations to feel real. Instead, it was built on shared moments, laughter, and a growing understanding of each other's hearts. Yet for Elena, the journey of self-acceptance was far from complete. Her insecurities lingered like shadows in the corners of her mind, whispering doubts even as she felt happiness with Mark. Elena still struggled with the way the world saw her. Even though Mark's presence brought her comfort, walking outside meant enduring stares and whispered comments. Sometimes, she would notice people in cafes, parks, or stores glancing at her, pointing, or murmuring to one another. Every stare reminded her of the years she had spent feeling out of place. Some days it made her question herself, wondering if anyone could truly see past her height and notice the person she was on the inside. Mark, however, never made her feel judged. He would take her hand when they went out, walk beside her with pride rather than embarrassment, and smile whenever anyone looked their way. "Let them stare," he would whisper softly. "We know the truth. We know who you really are." His unwavering support gave Elena strength, even on days when her confidence faltered. One evening, as they sat together in Mark's apartment watching a storm outside, Elena found herself sharing more of her fears than ever before. "Mark," she began, her voice trembling, "sometimes I feel like no one could ever truly love me. My body, it's too much, too big, too noticeable. I feel like I'll never fit into a normal life with a normal family, normal relationships." Mark looked at her, his eyes steady and kind. "Elena, listen to me. You're not too much. You're not too big. You're perfect as you are. I don't want you to change for anyone, least of all me. I love you because of who you are, not because of what you look like. Your body is part of you, but it doesn't define your worth. You define your worth." Elena felt tears welling up, not from sadness, but from a sense of relief. For years, she had carried a heavy burden of self-doubt, but Mark's words felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She realized that while the world might judge her, she could choose whom she listened to, and Mark's voice was one she wanted to hear above all others. Their relationship continued to grow, slowly but steadily. They explored new hobbies together, from cooking and painting to visiting small art galleries tucked away in quiet parts of the city. Elena loved these experiences because they allowed her to focus on joy and creativity rather than insecurities. Mark's enthusiasm and encouragement made every new activity feel exciting and achievable. Despite the happiness, Elena's insecurities never fully disappeared. She worried about dating seriously, about whether she could maintain a romantic relationship long-term. The thought of introducing Mark to her family and friends sometimes made her stomach twist with anxiety. What would they think? Would they see her as too big or different? Would they accept her, or would she face the same judgment she had endured for years? Mark sensed her fears and never pushed her. Instead, he reminded her that love is about patience and understanding, not about forcing someone into a role they aren't ready for. "Elena," he said one evening as they walked along a quiet street, "we'll take this one day at a time. There's no rush, no pressure. All that matters is that we're honest with each other and that we care. Everything else will fall into place." One afternoon, Mark surprised Elena with a picnic by a small lake outside the city. The sun was shining, the water sparkled, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Elena felt her heart lift as they spread a blanket and enjoyed the simple meal together. For a few hours, the world outside, stares, whispers, and judgments, disappeared. All that mattered was the quiet companionship they shared. During the picnic, Elena opened up about her childhood and the loneliness she often felt growing up tall. She described how difficult it had been to make friends at school, how children could be cruel without realizing it, and how she had learned to retreat into herself as a defense mechanism. Mark listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging. He asked gentle questions that allowed her to reflect on her experiences and slowly to see how resilient she had been all along. "You've faced so much, Elena," Mark said softly, "and yet you're here, kind and thoughtful, capable of loving and being loved. That's not weakness, that's strength. You've survived challenges that many couldn't even imagine. Don't let your height or other people's opinions make you doubt that strength." Elena nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and gratitude. Mark's words gave her courage, but she knew that building complete self-acceptance would take time. It wasn't something that could happen overnight. She had to learn to trust herself as much as she trusted him. As their relationship continued, Elena began to notice subtle changes in how she viewed herself. She caught herself standing a little taller, walking with more confidence, and even smiling at strangers instead of shrinking away. These small victories felt monumental. Mark noticed, too, complimenting her on her confidence in ways that didn't center on her height. "I love how you carry yourself," he would say. "It's inspiring." Their bond also strengthened through shared laughter and playful moments. They would challenge each other in board games, tease each other about silly things, and find joy in ordinary activities. These moments were simple, yet they helped Elena feel connected and grounded. She realized that love didn't have to be complicated or dramatic. It could be found in everyday experiences and quiet companionship. However, life wasn't without its challenges. Occasionally, Elena would overhear unkind remarks or experience awkward situations in public. Some people would stare, others would ask intrusive questions about her height, and a few would make assumptions about her lifestyle. Each encounter was a reminder of the prejudices she had faced all her life. Yet, with Mark by her side, these moments became easier to bear. His unwavering support and reassurance helped her maintain perspective and not let negativity take root. One day, while attending a small gathering with mutual friends, Elena faced a moment that tested her newfound confidence. A stranger, unaware of her history with judgment, made a comment about her height in front of the group. In the past, Elena might have withdrawn, feeling embarrassed or ashamed. But this time, she simply smiled and responded politely without letting the comment affect her mood. Later, as she walked away with Mark, she admitted, "I used to feel so small inside even though I'm tall. Today, I felt a little taller inside at least." Mark squeezed her hand and smiled. "That's because you are, Elena. Confidence comes from within. And every time you face those moments with grace, you grow stronger. You're learning to own your story, not let it own you." As the months went by, their love continued to deepen. Elena began to embrace the idea that she could have a future that included romance, companionship, and even family. Mark never pressured her about marriage or children. Instead, he shared his thoughts gently, allowing her to imagine a life that had once felt impossible. They talked about dreams, goals, and aspirations, always emphasizing that their relationship was a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Elena's journey of self-acceptance was ongoing, but it was marked by progress. She had begun to see herself as more than her height, more than her past experiences, and more than society's judgments. She was learning to celebrate her uniqueness while remaining open to love and connection. Mark's patience, encouragement, and unwavering belief in her worth had become a foundation she could rely on, giving her the courage to face the world with renewed confidence. One evening, as they watched the sunset from a hill overlooking the city, Elena reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the years of doubt, the isolation, and the insecurities that had once defined her. Now she felt hope, trust, and a growing sense of self-worth. She realized that life could be beautiful even when challenges persisted, and that love could be found in places and with people she had once thought impossible. "Mark," she whispered, leaning against him, "thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Mark smiled, resting his chin on her head. "Alina, you've always been amazing. I just helped you see it. You're strong, kind, and beautiful in ways you're only beginning to understand, and I'll be here every step of the way." In that moment, Alina felt a sense of peace she hadn't known for years. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't always be easy. Insecurities, societal judgments, and personal doubts would still arise. But she also knew she wasn't alone. With Mark's love and support, she could face any challenge. She could embrace her uniqueness, build meaningful relationships, and dream of a future that was once unimaginable. By the end of this chapter of her life, Alina had grown not only in confidence but also in trust. Trust in herself, trust in Mark, and trust in the possibility that love and acceptance could exist, even in a world that often judged her harshly. She had begun to see her life in a new light, one filled with hope, joy, and the promise of a future where she could be loved fully, completely, and without conditions. Time passed, and Alina and Mark's relationship continued to grow stronger. What had begun as a quiet friendship had blossomed into a deep, committed partnership. They spent countless hours together, sharing stories, dreams, and even mundane moments that somehow felt special because they were together. Alina had started to truly feel that she belonged, not just in Mark's life, but in a world that had often made her feel out of place. Despite the joy in her life, Alina still carried a quiet fear in her heart. She had always imagined that love might be fleeting for someone like her. Her height and unique appearance had made relationships complicated in the past, and she had learned to guard her emotions carefully. Even though she trusted Mark completely, the thought of something changing, of losing him, sometimes made her anxious. Mark sensed her fears but never pushed her to confront them before she was ready. Instead, he focused on being present, showing her through actions and words that his commitment was unwavering. They continued exploring new experiences together, from quiet picnics to visiting art galleries, and even simple walks in the park became adventures when they were side by side. One sunny afternoon, while they were sitting together on a bench overlooking a lake, Alina felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The gentle breeze and the warm sunlight created a perfect moment, and she decided to share her thoughts with Mark. "Mark," she said softly, "sometimes I wonder, could I ever have a family? Could I be a mother one day?" Mark took her hand, holding it gently. "Alina, I don't doubt it for a second. You have a kind heart and you have so much love to give. If you want a family, we can make it happen, but only when you're ready. No pressure." Alina smiled, feeling a mix of relief and warmth. She had never imagined someone would speak about her future in such a positive and reassuring way. The idea of a family had always seemed distant, almost impossible, given the insecurities she had carried for so long. But Mark's words made her feel that perhaps the impossible could become possible. Months later, after another cozy evening together, Alina discovered something that would change her life forever. She was pregnant. The news initially filled her with shock and anxiety. She had always imagined pregnancy as something beautiful, but she also feared the unknown. Her height and unique body structure had always made her wonder if motherhood would be possible for her. Now, faced with the reality, her emotions were a whirlwind of excitement, fear, and hope. Mark was the first person she told. They were sitting in the living room, Alina's hands trembling slightly as she held the test. She looked at him, her eyes wide with both wonder and nervousness. "Mark, I think I'm pregnant," she whispered. For a moment, Mark simply stared at her, a mix of surprise and awe on his face. Then slowly, a smile spread across his lips. He took her hands in his, squeezing them gently. "Alina, this is amazing. You're going to be a mother, and we're going to do this together. You're not alone." Hearing his words, Alina felt a wave of relief. The fear that had been looming in her mind began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of partnership and love. Mark's support was unwavering, and she realized that she could face this new chapter of her life with him by her side. As the pregnancy progressed, they faced several challenges together. Medical appointments were frequent, and Alina had to be extra careful due to her height. Doctors monitored her closely to ensure both her health and the baby. and she often felt nervous during these visits. But Mark was always there, holding her hand, asking questions, and reassuring her when anxiety threatened to take over. Despite the challenges, Alina found herself embracing the pregnancy. She marveled at the changes in her body and the life growing inside her. There were moments of awe when she felt the baby move for the first time, small kicks and movements that filled her heart with wonder. She began to see her body not as a limitation, but as a vessel capable of creating life, a gift she had never imagined she could experience. Mark, too, embraced the journey wholeheartedly. He attended every appointment, learned about prenatal care, and often read to Alina about parenting and child development. He never treated the pregnancy as something frightening or overwhelming. Instead, he focused on the joy and beauty of bringing new life into the world. His optimism and steady presence helped Alina feel safe, supported, and loved. As they prepared for the baby, they faced curious questions and comments from friends and strangers. Some people were amazed by Alina's pregnancy, while others asked intrusive questions or expressed surprise at her height. Each encounter reminded her of the prejudices she had faced all her life. Yet with Mark's support, she learned to respond with grace and confidence, knowing that their love and their family were their own, not anyone else's concern. During the later months of pregnancy, Alina and Mark spent more time at home preparing for the baby. They painted the nursery together, assembled furniture, and even practiced reading bedtime stories aloud. Each small task was filled with laughter, love, and the growing anticipation of meeting their child. Alina often found herself marveling at how far she had come, from a young woman insecure about her body to someone creating life with a partner who loved her completely. One evening, as they sat in the nursery surrounded by soft pastel colors and tiny clothes, Alina reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about her childhood, the years of insecurity, and the constant feeling of being different. She realized how much Mark's presence had changed her life. He hadn't just loved her, he had helped her see herself differently, to trust her own strength, and to embrace the possibility of happiness. Mark noticed her quiet reflection and reached out to hold her hand. "Alina," he said gently, "you've come so far, look at you now, you're going to be an amazing mother, and I'm so proud of you for everything you've faced, everything you've overcome, and everything you are." Tears filled Alina's eyes as she smiled at him. "Thank you, Mark. I couldn't have done this without you. You've made me believe in myself again. You've made me see that I'm capable of more than I ever imagined." As the due date approached, Alina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She knew the birth would be challenging, but she also knew that Mark would be by her side, supporting her through every step. The thought of bringing their child into the world filled her with a sense of purpose and joy she had never known before. Finally, the day arrived. Alina went into labor, and the hours that followed were filled with intensity, courage, and love. Mark remained by her side, holding her hand, offering words of encouragement, and reminding her that she was strong enough to face every challenge. His presence was a calming force, allowing her to focus on the miracle of bringing their child into the world. After hours of labor, Alina gave birth to a healthy baby. The moment she held her child for the first time, tears of joy streamed down her face. She felt an overwhelming sense of love, pride, and gratitude. In that instant, all her fears and insecurities seemed to fade, replaced by a profound connection to her child and to Mark, who shared in her joy and wonder. Mark held their baby gently, his eyes shining with amazement and love. "Alina," he whispered, "you did it. You're incredible. Look at what we created together." Alina smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had faced her fears, embraced her body, and experienced the joy of motherhood in a way she had never imagined possible. Mark's unwavering support and love had been a guiding light, helping her navigate every challenge and every doubt. In the weeks that followed, Alina and Mark settled into their new roles as parents. They navigated the challenges of caring for a newborn together, learning through trial and error, and celebrating each small victory. Alina marveled at the resilience of her body and the strength she had discovered within herself. She realized that her fears had been transformed into courage, her insecurities into confidence, and her doubts into hope. Their story became an inspiration to those around them, a testament to the power of love, patience, and unwavering support. Alina had once believed that her body was too big to be loved or to create a family. Now she knew that love transcends appearances, and that true connection is built on understanding, respect, and care. By the end of this chapter of her life, Alina had grown not only as a mother but also as a woman who embraced her uniqueness. She had learned that challenges could be faced with courage, that insecurities could be transformed into strength, and that love, when nurtured with patience and understanding, could overcome any obstacle. With Mark by her side and their child in her arms, Alina looked toward the future with hope, excitement, and a newfound sense of self-worth. She had discovered that her body was not a limitation, but a source of life and love, a vessel for creating a family and embracing the happiness she had once thought impossible. The day Alina and Mark had long awaited finally arrived. After months of anticipation, preparation, and countless moments of reflection, Alina went into labor. From the very first contraction, a mixture of excitement and nervousness filled the room. Mark was by her side every step of the way, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement, and offering comfort whenever she felt overwhelmed. Alina had spent her life worrying about how her height and body might make certain experiences more difficult, and childbirth had always been a lingering concern. She had imagined countless scenarios in her mind, some terrifying, others hopeful. But now, faced with the reality, she focused on the strength she had discovered within herself and the unwavering support of the man she loved. The hours were long, filled with intensity and determination. Alina's body worked tirelessly, and Mark remained a steady presence, reassuring her that she was capable, that she was strong, and that their child would soon be in their arms. Despite the exhaustion and pain, there was a sense of wonder in every moment, a knowledge that they were about to create something extraordinary together. Finally, after hours of labor, the cries of their newborn filled the room. Tears of joy streamed down Alina's face as she held her child for the first time. The feeling was indescribable, a mixture of love, awe, and relief. She had brought life into the world, something she had once thought impossible given her insecurities and doubts. Mark leaned over, his eyes filled with amazement and pride. "Alina, look at what we've done. You are incredible," he whispered. "You've been amazing every step of the way, and now we have this little life to love together." Alina gazed at their baby, marveling at the tiny fingers, the gentle breathing, and the perfect little features. She felt a surge of gratitude for her body, which had carried this new life, and for Mark, whose patience and love had made this journey possible. In that moment, all the fears, insecurities, and doubts she had carried for years seemed to melt away, replaced by a profound sense of fulfillment and joy. As the days passed, Alina and Mark settled into the new rhythm of life with their baby. The first weeks were a mixture of sleepless nights, feedings, and endless moments of wonder. Every tiny milestone, the first smile, the first coo, the first time the baby grasped Alina's finger, brought tears of happiness and amazement. Alina discovered a new depth of love she had never known, and Mark shared in every moment with gentle pride and unshakable support. Through these early days of parenthood, Alina reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered her childhood, the years of feeling different and misunderstood, and the insecurities that had followed her into adulthood. She realized that every challenge, every doubt, and every moment of fear had prepared her to embrace this new chapter with resilience and grace. Mark, too, reflected on their journey. He thought about the first time they met, the moments when Alina had shared her fears, and the gradual growth of trust and love between them. He felt immense pride in the woman Alina had become, strong, compassionate, and capable of giving life. He knew their love had grown through patience, understanding, and unwavering commitment, and he felt lucky to be part of this incredible story. As Alina recovered from childbirth, she also began to embrace her body in a new way. The insecurities she had carried for years began to fade, replaced by a sense of respect and gratitude for all that her body had accomplished. She saw it not as too big or different, but as a vessel of strength, capable of creating life and enduring challenges. This realization brought a newfound confidence and peace that touched every aspect of her life. Friends and family visited to meet the newborn, bringing gifts, congratulations, and heartfelt messages of support. Many were amazed by Alina's journey, inspired by her resilience, and touched by the love that radiated between her and Mark. Some had once doubted her ability to find love or to embrace motherhood, but seeing her now, holding her child, radiant with joy, They understood the incredible woman she had become. Even strangers began to notice Alina's story. People in her community admired her courage and the beauty of her family. They saw that love and strength are not defined by height, appearance, or societal expectations, but by character, perseverance, and the connections we build with others. Alina and Mark's story became a quiet inspiration, showing that challenges can be overcome, insecurities can be transformed, and happiness can be found in unexpected ways. As weeks turned into months, Alina grew more comfortable in her new role as a mother. She cherished the quiet moments, rocking the baby to sleep, reading bedtime stories, and simply watching the child's tiny expressions. Each day brought a sense of wonder and gratitude, and she marveled at how her life had transformed. The insecurities that had once weighed her down now seemed distant, replaced by pride, confidence, and love. Mark continued to be her partner in every sense of the word. He shared in the responsibilities of parenthood, offered encouragement when she doubted herself, and celebrated every small victory alongside her. Together, they navigated the challenges of life as new parents, discovering joy in simple routines and building a home filled with love, laughter, and care. Alina also realized the importance of sharing her story with others. She wanted people, especially those who had ever felt different or insecure, to know that their uniqueness is not a limitation, but a source of strength. She spoke openly about her journey, her fears, and the way love had helped her transform her self-perception. Her story became a message of hope, resilience, and empowerment. One day, while sitting with Mark and their child in the park, Alina reflected on the incredible journey they had shared. She remembered the moments of doubt, the whispers of judgment, and the insecurities that had once defined her life. Now she saw how far she had come. She had found love, embraced motherhood, and discovered a strength within herself that she had never imagined. Mark noticed her thoughtful expression and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Alina smiled, her eyes on the child sleeping in her arms. "I'm thinking about how far we've come, about everything I feared and how it led me here, about how love has transformed my life. I feel whole for the first time." Mark took her hand, holding it gently. "Alina, you are amazing. You've shown so much courage, and you've created something beautiful, not just a family, but a life filled with love and hope. I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful every day to be part of it." Alina felt a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that life had brought her here not by accident, but through a series of challenges, choices, and moments of trust and love. She had learned that happiness is not about conforming to expectations, but about embracing who you are and finding people who see and love you for it. As the years went by, Alina and Mark continued to nurture their family with patience, understanding, and joy. They celebrated milestones, big and small, and supported each other through life's inevitable challenges. Alina's confidence grew even more, and she became a role model for others, showing that self-acceptance, perseverance, and love can overcome even the deepest insecurities. Their story became a symbol of hope for many. People who had once doubted themselves found inspiration in Alina's journey. Her message was clear. No matter how different you may feel, no matter what challenges you face, love, patience, and self-acceptance can lead to happiness beyond imagination. Alina often reflected on her past and realized that every moment of doubt, every insecurity, and every challenge had been part of the journey that led her to this happiness. She had discovered the power of resilience, the importance of trust, and the transformative strength of love. And she knew that the love she shared with Mark and the family they had created together would continue to grow, bringing joy, inspiration, and hope for years to come. With their child in her arms and Mark by her side, Alina looked toward the future with confidence, hope, and a heart full of gratitude. She had learned that being different was not a limitation, that her body was strong and capable, and that love could flourish when nurtured with patience, understanding, and respect. Her life was a testament to the power of believing in oneself, embracing uniqueness, and finding love that truly sees and cherishes the person within. In the quiet moments, Alina would often smile and think back to the days when she felt unsure of herself, when the world's judgment seemed impossible to bear. She now knew that those days had been part of her story, shaping her, teaching her, and ultimately leading her to a life filled with love, family, and self-acceptance. Alina's journey, once filled with doubt and fear, had transformed into a story of triumph, resilience, and unwavering love. She had discovered that happiness is not about being perfect or fitting into someone else's expectations, but about embracing who you are, finding people who love you for that, and having the courage to step into life fully and fearlessly. As she watched her child sleep peacefully, Alina whispered a quiet promise. She would continue to nurture this love, protect this family, and live a life that honored both her uniqueness and the journey that had brought her here. Mark squeezed her hand, and together they looked toward a future full of hope, joy, and endless possibilities. In the end, Alina had discovered something far greater than she had ever imagined. That love could transform fears into courage, insecurities into strength, and a once doubtful life into one overflowing with joy, purpose, and fulfillment. And as they faced each new day together, she knew without a doubt that the best was yet to come.